We're back at the line table for our final topic. New Mexico's Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver made national news when she was interviewed on July 3rd on MSNBC. She was restating her vow not to turn over voter rolls to President Trump's administration unless subpoenaed to do so. She joined dozens of secretaries of state who reacted the same way to a letter sent out asking for personal information of voters. Now, Laura, you're a Democrat, you know Ms. Toulouse Oliver personally, but beyond that, what did you make of her stance? She came out fairly strong and fairly early in the process. About 40 plus states are now in this, but at the time, that was a pretty stiff angle. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's great. I think it's in line with the law. I think it's exactly what she needed to do.
Right.
And what I frankly don't see.
Now, we say in line with the law. She had made mention of state law, you're saying.
Well, no,
we
I
have
mean,
here?
in general, you have to protect voter information.
Okay.
It's not the sort of thing that you can provide to anybody. I mean,
Right.
it isn't subject to IPRA because there's personal identifiable information. So it's PII. You know, technically, some of this stuff includes, you know, social security numbers, date of births, addresses also, which, you know, addresses are debatable about whether that's something you can find in other ways, but the date of births and the social security numbers are information that, I mean, it could lead to all kinds of identity fraud issues. I mean, you have to protect that information. So the fact that they're getting a request and it isn't something that I think they have the discretion to turn over. So for me, you know, as an attorney, I'm looking at the other secretaries of states that have agreed to do this, and I'm wondering where's their authority to do so, because you're supposed to keep voter information protected.
Right.
I mean, I think that if there was a basic request for anything else, and somebody turned that stuff over, if any county clerk did, we would be very unhappy that that voter information had been turned over. So the fact that it's, you know, a commission that the president set up, I don't think is any different. So I think I applaud her for taking that stand early, and it's something that I think is important to do. Now, of course, if she is, you know, the requirement to have a subpoena or a court order of some sort means that the commission or whoever's interested in the information has to go to a judge and say, here's why we need it, and has to meet that level. So I think it's appropriate to do so, and obviously she'll do that if required to by the judiciary. But otherwise, I think it's totally appropriate for her to take a stand on.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Also, just an issue of states' rights and our ability to. Our elections are run by the state, not by the federal government. Moreover, I think the purpose of this commission is questionable. What is it actually going to solve? It seems to me like a major smokescreen. The Secretary of State for Maine is a member of the commission and is declining to turn over his state data. So, and if you look at the request, federal databases versus state databases are apples and oranges. So how are you going to intersect the two and accomplish any sort of result?
Yep.
So right in line.
Tom, big hanging point is how far back this commission wants information. It's not just the last cycle or the cycle before that or the cycle before that. It's a long way back. Why would you need that kind of information about how people voted back in 06, 08, 10? You know, it's weird. Go ahead.
It's a disruptor move.
Yeah.
You know, you have disruptors who all they want to do is just create chaos. And you know, going way back, it's, you know, like the UNM thing. You know, you just create disruptors. You know, it's like who? You know, you're trying to recreate the past, and I just think it's unfortunately a waste of time and effort of public funds.
Sophie, what do you think of that? It's where's the value here? Can you glean anything that the commission's looking
the
for?
Commission hasn't articulated a value that I think is recognizable to the rest of us in terms of going back that far. There are certainly some theories about what value there might be given who is running this commission. And I think it's fascinating the request was made before the commission itself had an opportunity to look at that. One of the real concerns from my perspective, and I think all of the concerns that are brought up at the table are really important, is that there is a requirement on the part of federal government that if they are going to collect data, they have to have a program, a system by which they protect it. And this commission has not shown that that's in place. And I think given in today's environment in which we're talking about Russian hacking and we're talking about commercial hacking and the various really significant data breaches that we've seen amongst businesses.
That's right.
Creating a national database of this information, what a valuable prize that would be, especially as Laura said, if it included birth dates. All they need is our mother's maiden names, and then we're done, right? Then they've got everything. So I think it was not well thought through, and this commission has not really done a good job, I think, of articulating what exactly they're after, except for we're after, this is the fear that we hear reflected in the rhetoric of some of the people on the commission. We're after limiting the vote, keeping people from voting. How do we slice that down? That's the real concern for a lot of us behind all this.
Ms. Toulouse-Oliver was very clear about that. The voter suppression was, she used the term, that this is a possibility. Would you agree with that as well, Laura?
Absolutely, and I think we have to keep that in mind. Here in New Mexico, we haven't had the same instances that a lot of other states have. In the South, for example, Arizona has had several instances of voter suppression where the Department of Justice has come in and actually had to oversee their voting in order to ensure that there isn't voter suppression happening. We haven't exactly had that here. There's been anecdotal sort of suggestions, but that's something to keep in mind. And I think that the creation of this national database is just a bad idea in general. Right now we have 50 states, 50 different databases within each of those states. I mean, here in New Mexico, we have what the Secretary of State data they collect, but there's also the county clerk data. And that's, there's issues with transfer of data between the two of them in terms of getting updated information. So all of a sudden now you're going to create a national one where you have a whole other level of problems in terms of transferring information on a timely basis. And what are you using the data for?
That's right.
That's a real problem.
About a minute and a half here, Merritt. This idea of voter fraud, it's just a thing that's just out there, and there's folks who are worried about it. We applaud them for it. We all want good, free, honest elections. But then we have a sitting president some months ago claiming people from other places were being bussed into New Hampshire. Do you remember that? To vote to the tune of many hundreds of thousands. And it just puts this thing out there where it seems like there's problems where it turns out in many, many studies there are no problems with this. Why is this still such a thing out there?
Well, I do think there's a piece of it that becomes urban legend. At the same time, I think a lot of people are kind of puzzled by the fact that the type of documentation you would have to show to make a credit card purchase or write a check at a store does not apply to voting. And it seems in 2017, with the issues of identity theft, that some sort of verification of who you are would be appropriate and not be voter suppression. And so I think there are a couple camps on voter fraud. The notion, the extreme notion has certainly, I think, been shot down. And I think really after what's happened in the 2016 presidential election, anyone pushing voter fraud from a Republican standpoint is going to have difficulty given our sitting president.
Good point there. That's all the time we have. Thank you all for being here. Good stuff this week.